What? It fucking stinks, right?
Boma, you farted?
I'm not gonna leave us outside for a little bit. We got.
We got NF. Happy.
Let's see what you got.
Dear God, please hear me out. I know it's been a couple years since I've reached out and said hello. I bet you're wondering why I keep obsessing on and stressing all the little things when I should be living life and soaking up the memory. I know I've been selfish, I have no excuse to give you it's true. Hanging by a thread's how I live. I don't know why, but I feel more comfortable living in my agony, watching my self-esteem go up in flames, acting like I don't care what anyone else thinks, when I know truthfully that that's the furthest thing from how I feel. But I'm too proud to open up and ask you to pick me up and pull me out this hole I'm trapped in. The truth is I need help, but I just can't imagine who I'd be if I was happy. Yeah.
Aw, that's really sad when you see a child have to essentially like raise themselves because either their parents are not around or their parents are not like mentally like present for them. Like she's really young, and the fact that she's like going home by herself to like a home where like her mom's like passed out on the couch, like that's so sad. It says a lot about like how much as a little girl she's being exposed, and it looks like like they're kind of going back and forth between her as a child and her as an adult, or maybe like she's thinking back to it, and kind of like they can't outgrow what they had gone through as a kid, and so they're forever like as children almost. What do you think?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like to your point also, like the flashbacks are like really showing you why she is the way she is, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't really understand the person if you don't know the origins of that person, right? So that's why like therapists are always talking about like, how was your childhood like? Because we
Yeah.
tend to repeat the patterns that we see. And in the opening scene, the first thing that came to my mind is the chaotic household.
Mm-hmm.
And a chaotic household can be really telling into a person's internal state, right? Like if a person's depressed and things in life aren't going too well for them, the last thing on their mind is like keeping the house clean or doing the dishes or straightening up the house or vacuuming. So like that house is like mirroring that person's state of mind. And so like, you see her as a girl, like she sees her mom just knocked out, neglecting her. She's not there. So to your point, like she had to raise herself. But then as she gets older, her house is exactly the same way as her mom's house was, right? That was her normal.
Yeah.
And so having a dirty house where things were like disorganized was the way she grew up. So she carried on that normal to when she got older, because she doesn't see anything wrong with that, because how could she when she grew up that way?
Yeah, it's the violin, like the fast-paced violin, but also like the small details that you see. Like for instance, she wakes up, she goes and checks on her mom, and her mom is not there. It's usually the other way around, I feel like, like when you see movies, how you depict it is like the parents, checking in on the kids to make sure like they're okay. Are they up? If not, like let's wake them up to get them ready for the day.
Yeah.
And like waking up and she grabs the dirty bowl to eat cereal. You know, it's just sad.
Yeah. And I like, the reason why I like NF so much is because he gives voice to mental health in a way where, like, it's really gripping because it's through music, right? Like, a lot of people, like, obviously, like, there's a big circle, and there's just a big array of, like, all this type of media surrounding mental health and your overall well-being. And for NF to be able to raise that awareness through music is, like, just really insightful, you know, because typically, like, some people are like, oh, I want to read about mental health, especially if you're really young. Sometimes you're not into that sort of thing, but you love music. So it's a way of, like, spreading awareness through music and the music video. So the way it's filmed is really accurate, because, like, what he's depicting is intergenerational trauma, like people repeating the patterns of their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Who I'd be if I was happy, yeah. Been this way so long, it feels like something's off when I'm not depressed. I got some issues that I won't address. I got some baggage I ain't open yet. I got some demons I should put to rest. I got some traumas that I can't forget. I got some phone calls I've been avoiding. Some family members I don't really connect with. Some things I said I wish I would've not let slip. Some hurtful words that never should've left my lips. Some bridges burned, I'm not ready to rebuild yet. Some insecurities I haven't dealt with yet. I'll be the first to admit that I'm a lonely soul, and the last to admit I need a hand to hold. Losing hope, headed down a dangerous road. Strange.
There's just so much he depicts here, like, lyrically, but also visually. The part that he said that, and I'm obviously paraphrasing here,
Was it the depressed line?
what was that line? I was about to rewind it.
When I'm not depressed, something's like off.
Let me see.
He definitely said it differently.
Yeah, like, I don't want to, like, butcher, like, his line. Let me see.
Ends up not even being what he said. I mean, this whole verse.
I'm gonna rewind it a little bit.
I got some issues that I won't address. I got some baggage.
I'm gonna rewind it a little more. All right, been this way so long, it feels like something's off when I'm not depressed, which indicates that if your normal state is one that's depressed, typically you'll see a lot of people self-sabotage because their normal is a depressed state. So when they're finally out of that state, or things are starting to look up a little bit and they're starting to experience a little bit of happiness, it's almost like it's uncomfortable because it's not familiar, right?
Oh my God. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, we gravitate towards the things that are familiar to us. That's why, like, even with relationships, people tend to stick with relationships they're familiar with, even though it's toxic, because that's what they know. And so, like, if a girl's with, like, let's say 3 guys that all treat her like shit, you know,
At the
even
same time?
no, not at this. Hopefully not. Could be, right, but hopefully not. But my point is that when people are used to being treated a certain way, even if it's in a negative way, because that's their normal, they'll still gravitate towards that because that's what they know. That's normal to them. What?
It actually made me think about, as you were saying that, I was trying to, like, connect with that, and my connection to that is, you ever been or witnessed a relationship where everything's, like, really mellow, like there's no issues, there's, like, nothing bad, and one or both people just really want to, like, pick a fight because, like, they are so used to drama in, like, previous relationships or, like, other relationships that it's almost as if they need to introduce drama into that relationship, otherwise it's like they're uncomfortable.
That's exactly right. 100%.
Something's off when I'm not depressed. I got some issues that I won't address. I got some baggage I ain't open yet. I got some demons I should put to rest. I got some traumas that I can't forget. I got some phone calls I've been avoiding. Some family members I don't really connect with. Some things I said I wish I would've not let slip.
And, like, even that line, like, I'm not picking up on family members that I don't connect with. And this isn't all the time, but like typically when people are avoiding family members, there's something going on in their lives, right? They don't want to show face for a reason, or they're just disconnected with that family member, or they never had that connection with them to begin with. So there's a lot that he's touching on. What do you look like?
Oh no, I can relate.
Dead. I was wondering why you looked like that.
I feel exposed.
You feel exposed.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, basically what he's touching on is like this avoidance that we tend to have. You know, even though people are trying to reach out or trying to reconnect, like we're just not ready for that.
Well, it just goes back to like this whole thing about how what do people say, like get your house in order?
That's
like
right.
it just goes to show like their house is not in order. My dad has always told me that if you're like if your direct family relationships are not aligned and they're not good and healthy, like all your other relationships are never going to be that way. Like you have to start off with like your mother, your dad, your siblings, or whoever's like extremely close to you. And you know, like you see, you know, there's issues with the household, and you know, when there's issues with the household, it will translate and kind of leak outside of your house as well. And like you notice some of the photo frames are crooked. To me, it just looks like this picture is wrong, or this picture is like not right, you know?
Yeah, leave it to you. Always catch the little details. Like
I try.
The crooked picture
I
frames.
try. Like I'm very drawn to like the little like on purpose things.
Yeah.
It's like the I Spy with my little eye.
Yeah.
I should put the rest. I got some traumas that I can't forget. I got some phone calls I've been avoiding. Some family members I don't really connect with. Some things I said I wish I would've not let slip. Some hurtful words that never should've left my lips. Some bridges burned, I'm not ready to rebuild yet. Some insecurities I haven't dealt with yet. I'll be the first to admit that I'm a lonely soul, and the last to admit I need a hand to hold. Losing hope, headed down a dangerous road. Strange I know, but I feel most at home when I'm living in my agony, watching my self-esteem go up in flames, acting like I don't care what anyone else thinks, when I know truthfully that that's the furthest thing from how I feel. But I'm too proud to open up and ask you to pick me up and pull me out this hole I'm trapped in. The truth is I need help, but I just can't imagine who I'd be if I was happy. Don't know what's around the bend. Don't know what my future is, but I can't keep on living.
Right, like just love this scene so much because it's grounded in psychology. He does a really good job, like the mirroring of her and her mom, and really, like I was saying earlier, depicting that intergenerational trauma, that social learning theory. Like we learn through modeling, through mirroring, especially from the parent, right? That's our first role model. And so because of her mom, like she's internalized her mom's normal, right? Which is, you know, what she's experiencing now. And I like what he said earlier. And again, my memory shot today, but to paraphrase, he said something along the lines of, you know, truthfully, I don't really care what people think, but that's furthest from how I actually feel. And, you know, people typically do that when they have low self-esteem because they're having issues adapting to the environment or adapting to their social circle. The easiest defense mechanism is to be like, hey, you know what? Like, I don't really care what they think. Like, their opinion doesn't really matter to me. But the reality is we're social creatures, we're social beings. So we actually do care what people think. But because we're not able to adapt well, instead of absorbing that and saying, hey, maybe like there's something I'm doing wrong, to defend themselves against that feeling, they're just like, oh, I don't really care. Like, I don't really need that person. But really, you're just not addressing your internal issues. It's much easier to reject someone outside of you than to look internally and look in the mirror and see what you're doing wrong. And so I think he depicts this like really well.
And the irony of this whole celebration and scene is like, why is this little girl that's about to turn 5 years old so sad? Like, I haven't seen her smile like this whole 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And for me, I always associate children as pure, innocent, and they're full of life, and they're just always like not always, but they're typically like very excited about birthdays, and everyone else is very excited except for her. And then you go back to her like barging in as an adult into her house, and I think like this is her breakthrough. Like, this is her breakthrough moment of like just not holding it in anymore, but releasing like her anger, her frustration, sadness, like the combination of like anger but also sadness, and then realizing that like, holy shit, like I'm my mother.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's powerful. It's a powerful scene. And it's weird for it to be around the scene where she's celebrating her birthday. I wonder if there's a reason behind that.
Yeah, and it does, you have to come into that realization that like you're becoming like your toxic mom. Without coming to that realization, you can't actually break the pattern, right? Like, obviously you have to have the awareness and the mindfulness first. And now like you said, like she is having that breakthrough. She's realizing like, oh my God, I'm turning into my mom. And so, like she's like, she doesn't know what to do, I think, at this point. And like, she's really outraged, flipping tables, all that stuff. But she talks about like, I don't know what my future is. So there's always this level of uncertainty if you don't know what to do. And that can seem really scary.
And then the constant line of not knowing what happy feels like, or what it would be like to be happy.
To be happy, yeah.
Like, they're clearly in a very depressed state.
Right.
Oh.
Bend. Don't know what my future is, but I can't keep on living living in my agony, watching my self-esteem go up in flames, acting like I don't care what anyone else thinks, when I know truthfully that that's the furthest thing from how I feel. But I'm too proud to open up and ask you to pick me up and pull me out this hole I'm trapped in. The truth is I need help, but I just can't imagine who I'd be if I was happy. If I was happy. If I was happy.
I can't help but think about whether as a kid her parents got a divorce, and that's why her mother wasn't around. She had to stay with her dad.
I don't know. But I like how he ended it, right? Because a lot of what he was saying in the lyrics was like being too proud to ask for help. And I think after looking at herself, which is like seeing the resemblance she has with her mom, she's starting to realize like there's a hole in my life, and that hole is the relationship I don't have with my mom. So I think she's trying to reconnect with her mom to try to understand what's going on, but also like she just needs help.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so she wants to go to her mom and maybe rebuild that relationship and try to get help in any way that her mom maybe has to offer. And so I like the way she ended that, because like I think we all have that desire to reconnect with parents, especially if it was a rocky relationship, especially if it was a distant relationship, it was toxic, a lot of things you don't understand until you get older. And there's always that internal desire to like, maybe I can patch things up, or maybe just there's some things you want to understand.
This shit deep.
Yeah. No, NF is really good. And I always love his topics because they're real topics, right? It's more than just like a fat ass twerking around every like 30 seconds, right?
No, they're really relatable, or you can connect it and like put yourself in their shoes, especially with like the music videos that he has with his songs. And there's always like a kid, right? Like most of his music videos involve like a child.
Oh yeah, which makes sense because a lot of the traumatic stuff happened during our childhood.
Yeah, I love that. I'm all about that childhood trauma dissection.
Yeah. You love childhood.
I really do. It's like so like not fun, but it's I think it's because, like we romanticize about our childhood, and so if you had like a rough childhood, kind of understanding it makes your adulthood make more sense.
100%. Yeah. I think the more you understand about how you were as a kid, you definitely understand like why you are the way you are.
And like the weird thing about like the beginning and the end song was, in the beginning he's lost touch with God, and then toward the end you see she lost touch with her mother, and that like they're kind of parallel, right? Because you're asking for answers, and like I think like the role that God plays differs for some people, right? Some people look at it as, higher being. Some people look at God as, something internal. And so it kind of goes to the reality of the adult version of her, where she's seeking answers and she finds it from her mom.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point, especially with the whole viewpoint on God, right? Like some people pray it's more external, some people think it's more internal. I think typically when people are praying, they might pray like upward to something external, but really if you think about like anytime you create anything, and obviously God is depicted as a creator, anytime you create anything, whatever is created from that, there's a part of the creator in the creation. So if you see a painting, obviously that painting wouldn't exist without the mind of the painter.
Oh my gosh, and the mother's the creator.
That's right. Right. So like that archetype of like the creator and then the creation and then them like merging and then separating, like they're not separable, they're inseparable, right? There's a connection. So when people are praying, sometimes I think they might be praying to something they perceive as external, but really they're praying to something inside of them. Like you're looking for answers and you're hoping that the answers come from inside of you, because there's a lot of unconscious insight that we have, right? That's why there's a lot of literature on like dream interpretations and stuff like that, trying to understand who you are. And the only way you do that is through internal. Like you don't understand who you are from something outside of yourself. It's inside of you. But it's a combination, like, because you can't separate the human from the environment. So yeah. And then...
And we out.